Hello, everybody, and welcome to our IOCDF Back to the Basics live stream, where every other month we get to talk a little bit about OCD basics, ERP basics. We get to chat about all of the things, and it's super fun because we talk about a lot of similar questions, but get to hear it through the lens of different awesome humans. And we have two amazing humans here tonight. We have Kyra and Jessie with me. And it's just going to be super fun because they are awesome people. So we are also equally excited to see all of you in the chat. I see Nathan and Terracotta and Spence. Spence, we have esteemed panelists here.
From Houston.
Mm-hmm.
That's near you, Kyra.
Oh, yeah. I go to Rice University for anyone wondering. gotta plug the Rice University. I was like, what part of my room is not a mess right now?
And actually, from here, it looks like your room is really put together. So
that's the goal. Thank you.
I always strive for that too. If I turned my computer around, y'all would be shocked. It's like really bad news bears over in that corner of the office.
It's really bad right under me, but you can't see it. It's great.
That's what we strive for.
We're just exposing ourselves right now. If we would have not said anything, they would have thought we were the most organized.
No, we're advocating. We're showing that it's not OCD.
Yes.
Oh, true. Oh my gosh.
That is, I think, the most important thing. Well, before we jump in, and I see that too. So before we jump in with these awesome humans, I do want to note that we are so excited that y'all are here, but this is educational and is not intended to replace therapy. If you have treatment-related questions, please work with a provider or contact a local clinician. You can use the IOCDF's online resource directory at iocdf.org/find-help to locate a trained clinician near you. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. If you're in crisis or you're feeling suicidal or unsafe, please call the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 or visit 988lifeline.org. You can also go to your local emergency room or call 911. We really want to create a safe space tonight. As always, we want to create a respectful place for everyone. And we want everybody to be kind to each other because we know that everybody who's here is advocating just by showing up in the chat and by communicating and supporting one another. But I also want to note that this stream is being broadcast on multiple social media platforms and is being recorded. So please keep that in mind as you ask questions and as you plug in and as you advocate. So yay, all of the housekeeping is done and we get to jump in. Woo!
Let's go.
Fun stuff. So I just want to start by, I feel like people in the chat probably know y'all, but I want y'all to both get to introduce yourself and just share a little bit about you and your own journey with OCD and maybe some fun facts. I know we didn't really prep this beforehand, so whatever comes out. This is live. This is real. But Kyra, I'll go over to you if you want to share a little bit about you and your journey at Rice and your journey with OCD and all the
Perfect.
things.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kyra. I'm an IOCDF advocate and proud to be one. My journey with OCD kind of started in 2018. Before that, I'd kind of had little quirks that my parents were like, oh, what a quirky kid. And now having the diagnosis, we're like, yeah, I feared those were compulsions. But in 2018, I mainly had ritualistic OCD when I was a competitive gymnast. And then I ended up actually getting injured and not being able to do gymnastics anymore, which was pretty much my entire life up until that point. And I really kind of lost sense of who I was and what else was I going to do with the extra 34 hours a week except for ruminate and make my OCD worse. So
sounds like a great trade-off, Kyra.
I know.
I think it's a great plan.
I was using 100% of my brain when I made that decision.
You were doing literal mental gymnastics.
Exactly. So yeah, unfortunately, that's when my contamination OCD really took a hold. And in the beginning, I was still a petulant teenager. And my mom's like, Kyra, you need help. And I'm like, nah, we're chilling, trust. And then it increased exponentially until the summer of 2021. I couldn't get out of my bed. I thought everything around me was contaminated. I like rarely left the house. I used to like have to wipe my dressers down like in my bedroom every single night because I thought that they were contaminated. Fun fact, that compulsion, I'm going to be exposing myself here, actually caused me to grow mold on my dressers because I was wiping it down with like soap and water because my mom hid all the like Lysol and Clorox. So that was
bananas how we feel like it's going to keep us safe, and then you're actually like creating contaminants.
Honestly, I saw the little colonies start to form, but
your first science experiment.
Exactly. But yeah, basically I couldn't stop, and I was at a really bad time in my life. I was having like a lot of suicidal ideations, pretty much, yeah, my rock bottom. And then I really decided to go like all into ERP. I'd done it a little bit in the past, but kind of just to appease my mom, and I just kind of like did it halfway. But after, I guess, like it getting a lot worse, I realized that I deserved to choose myself over my OCD. And I remember I would just like sit in bed and dream of like being in New York and like fancy, like getting a matcha. I don't even like matcha. It's so performative, but that's like the aesthetic I'm going for. And I'm like, well, I think I deserve that life. And if I don't try, then just nothing's going to happen. And so I eventually started trying a lot more, really doing it for myself, putting a lot of myself into it. And within like 2 to 3 weeks, I was doing exposures, and I'm like, wow, I like couldn't even imagine doing this like 3 weeks ago. Even though I'm scared out of my mind right now, it just wouldn't have been even possible. So yeah, and when I was really struggling with OCD, my parents didn't think I'd graduate high school, let alone go to college. I'm now a junior at Rice University. Junior is still absolutely crazy to say. I'm majoring in neuroscience and cognitive science, and I'm doing OCD research. And yeah, that's pretty much me. Fun fact. I always pull out this fun fact and people are like, oh, that's so depressing. But I'm like, it's okay. We can laugh about it now. When I got
it's more depressing than the mold.
So true. The bar is like here.
The bar's low.
So yeah, as a part of my gymnastics injury, I had 3 hip surgeries, which also did not help with the OCD and turning to different coping mechanisms. But yeah, that's me.
Wow, that's a lot.
That is depressing. I agree with people.
Sorry. It's okay. We can laugh about it now.
Jesse's like, I'm not laughing.
Can we, Kyra?
That's like, I feel like I've had so many instances with I think people in the chat can probably relate to this, where I go to my therapist and I tell this story that I think is like really funny, and they look at you and they're like not remotely laughing. And they're like, let's talk about why that feels funny.
And why do you find that funny?
Yeah, exactly. No, okay. Actually, I had that happen this week, but we don't need to go into that. That's okay. Kyra, thank you so much for being here and just for sharing so authentically. And you are such an amazing IOCDF advocate. And it's just so cool to see where you are with college, and also like now as a professional in the field and moving into research, and just it's so cool. So thank you for sharing. And we're excited to hear from you tonight about all things OCD.
Thanks for having me. And now on to the fabulous Jessie.
Jessie, wait, it goes backwards.
I was gonna say, I'm curious here. I'm like,
no, I have to like think about it backwards.
You got it.
So we have Jessie here, who I'm also really excited to hear from. And Jessie would love to hear a little bit about you and your journey, and what brings you here, and also your journey to being a clinician, which is really exciting, and also any fun facts that you want to share.
Okay, well, it's hard to be curious fun facts, so
yeah,
I'll try. So my journey, it's funny because Kyra, you were like 2018. Mine probably started in like 2002 or whatever, when I was a really little kid. Like looking back, everything points to me having OCD. I had no idea what OCD was, and things kind of got ramped up. My big fear was that I was going to get kidnapped. I don't know where it came from, because I lived in a very like nice suburban safe area. That's actually, the nickname is the Bubble is what it's called, because it's such a like, but well, you probably got it. And so I was terrified and kind of convinced that every night like was the night that like I was gonna, like, for some reason they were gonna know where my room was. It wasn't well thought through, but like they were gonna know where my room was, but not my parents or my older brother. And so I had this insane list of compulsions where essentially I would check the front door, the alarm, all this stuff, but I would do it when my parents were asleep. Like they weren't seeing any of this. And I was like young, so I didn't sleep that much. I would like, and I had to follow every single thought. I remember having the thought that maybe they were under my bed, because of course the intruder would come in with me not knowing and be under my bed. So then I had a little night light, like one of those, like, actually it was one of those like Barnes and Noble like book clips that you like attach to your book that had like the little flashlight, because it was like the best thing I could find. Because I was going to be like, Mom, let's get a nightlight for the intruders that are going to murder me. You know, like that doesn't, you know, whatever. 6-year-olds don't usually say that. So I was like, okay, every time I had the thought, I would like swoop my head under the bed and check. And I'd be like, whoo! And then 2 minutes later, when I had the thought, I'd have to do it again. And so things got kind of progressively worse and worse and worse, to a point where like my parents were starting to notice. And differently from Kyra, and I feel like differently from a lot of people I've talked to with OCD, I was thrilled to do ERP. Like, obviously no one wants to actually do like the exposures, but like I was like ready to go into like a therapist's office and someone to tell me like what the heck I could do with these thoughts, because I was so freaked out and I had no idea why. And I had all these rules, and I actually came in to the therapist's office. She was like, just like write all them down. And I was like, she's going to be so impressed with my thoroughness, because it was like so long. It was like pages. And she was like, oh, this is it? I was like, damn, are you kidding? Like, I worked hard on this. So I ended up, like, thankfully after, it was like 3 or 4 therapists, that I found someone who specialized in ERP. And it totally changed my life. I had no idea, had never heard of ERP or OCD before. And that was kind of the big turning point. But then a second turning point for me was when I was in college. That's the picture there of my college. So I don't have the name, but I have the picture. But when I was in college, my therapist had suggested like, hey, why don't you like go to a support group or like meet other people with OCD? And I was like, weird. Hell no, I'm not gonna do that.
I don't know people like Katie. That's gross.
Especially if I knew people like Katie, I would have been out way earlier. Yeah. So I was like, no, this is gonna be so weird and awkward. And I don't know why, but I was like really against it. And she kept saying it. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna do it. And then I'll tell her it was so bad. And I log on to, she had sent me a few, and I was like, I'm gonna do it tonight. And it was like, that night, it was maybe a little like, it was kind of addictive now that I think about it, like, ooh. But I signed up like that night I went, and that was kind of my second like turning point where, of course, I like totally fell in love with it. The therapist is Tracy Ibrahim, who's also an IOCDF advocate and is amazing. And now we know each other really well, which is really fun. And like, she totally changed my life that night. And I continued going to her groups, and that got me involved with the IOCDF and getting to run groups with young adults and meeting other people. And that, you know, totally changed my life. As you know, if you're on this stream, that like the IOCDF does amazing work, and people like Kyra and Katie. So yeah. Oh, fun fact. Okay. Fun fact.
I don't know that people like hearing me, but people like hearing Jessie and Kyra.
Please.
No, we love you, Katie. You're the best.
I love Katie. I want to hear a fun fact from Katie after this, but my fun fact has definitely improved since I left college, when they always ask you for your fun fact. And now I beg for people to ask. So thank you, Katie. My fun fact is that I was on the TV show The Golden Bachelor as an extra on the pickleball episode. And it is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. And probably the coolest thing that will ever happen to me.
I love that. I forgot you had told. That is such a good fun fact. You have the best fun fact.
That's a really
I
good
don't
fun
know.
fact. I'm
Kyra
really
broke her hip
looking it
3
up.
times, so
Yeah, Kyra, you have a great fun fact too. You have
you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
varying degrees.
What
of
about
fun
you,
fact.
Katie?
I was not ready for my fun fact tonight. I feel like this is less of a Katie Universal fun fact and more of a recent fun fact because this is just what
Okay.
came to my mind from the last 2 weeks. My fun fact is that in the last 2 weeks, I have started feeling old for the first time in my life. And it was a very specific incident. Like this is like, so in my mind, I get it, y'all. I'm 35, but in my head, I feel like I'm like 15. I feel like we all kind of feel like we're younger than we are. And I feel like people see me like that, but then I forget that I'm like 35. So I was at this race, was doing just a road race, and I wear chicken legs.
Casual.
Yeah, just casual. But I was wearing chicken leg shorts, which are my favorite running shorts. Not to be like promoting chicken legs right now, but they're super cute. They have all these like patterns and stuff. And it's really popular with the high school running kids right now. So I was wearing this pair, and there was like this high school like teen running kid, he was probably like in 9th or 10th grade wearing the same shorts as me. And I thought it was super cool. So I went up before the race and I was like, oh my gosh, we have the same shorts on. And he looked at me like I was this creepy old lady who had just like ruined his entire life. And he looked mortified and like put his head down and walked away. And I realized in that moment that I was old and that teenagers don't want to dress like me. So that's my fun fact.
No.
The last 2 weeks I've been like,
I would love to dress like you, Katie. I was gonna wear pink for you, but I only have one. And
yes.
It's
I
okay.
love Matt. I love that Matt thinks he's 19 too. Thank you, sad backstory. His loss. Thank you.
Hey, you live with Ethan, so no matter how like old you feel, just look at him. So, and then you'll feel so much better about yourself.
He is a boomer. He was born in the 70s. Y'all, sorry to anybody who's born in the 70s or before that. That is also okay. But I like to remind him that he was born in the 70s. I tell him that. I kind of hope he's not watching right now because he's gonna be.
I really hope he is.
I have to work in at least one like Ethan roast per like live stream.
Kyra started the he's a boomer thing. So I say that to him all the time. I'm like, well, you are a boomer. You don't really know what. Anyway, I love boomers. Sorry, we're not discriminating here. Let's move on to the next OCD question. So I would love to ask y'all, because this is all in kind of getting back to the basics. I love to ask, what is OCD? And I like to think about this. We were doing this in a group actually this week that was super fun. I like to think about it in the form of kind of like an elevator pitch. If you got on the bottom floor with somebody and they look at you and they're like, oh, wait, I heard you advocate for OCD. What is that thing? If you had just like a few floors to quickly like explain it in a good way, how would you describe it? So yeah, Jessie or Kyra, I'll let either of y'all kind of start off here.
I'll just quickly say it's really funny you use that example because Kyra, I don't know if this happened to either of you, but at like the IOCDF conference, there's usually another conference going on. And there was like this whole like building, it was either this year or last year where there was like that building men, like a construction conference. And they're all like these, like, we're like, we can tell who's here for which conference. And then I was wearing you wear the tag that says like IOCDF. And then there was like, they were wearing their like construction. And they were like, what's IOC? They were like, what is that? And I was like, oh, like, and usually I don't get nervous about it, but it was so awkward. And I was like, oh, it's an OCD conference. And the guy looks at me and he was like, wow, they make conferences for anything these days, don't they? And I was like, elevator pitch. And I was like, this is what OCD is. And it's a debilitating condition. And so there was a bit of an angry elevator pitch.
There was an elevator. See, this is
there was an elevator pitch. It happened. Yes.
Okay, so what is your elevator pitch? And I get it. Like, definitely some people, if they don't realize what it is, then totally get that side back.
And he totally had like no idea. So yeah, it was a good advocacy moment, actually.
So Jessie, we are in the elevator with you right now, and we were like, what is this conference thing? Like, elevator pitch, angry, let's go.
Yeah, riled up. I think my big spiel is that OCD is a debilitating condition. Isn't it one of the top 5?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it top 5 or top 10?
I think
of
I think it was top 5 for World Health Organization.
Okay, that's what I thought too. Yeah, so top 5 debilitating condition from the World Health Organization, where you have obsessions, so unwanted, intrusive thoughts, that thoughts, feelings, sensations, urges, and then compulsions that help to make you feel a little better about those thoughts. I know I like to give usually like an example of like something I love that cool logo. I usually like to give an example so people can kind of like place it and not. I personally don't really experience contamination OCD, so I usually give a non-contamination example where I'll usually explain about the intruders, because that was always kind of my biggest fear.
No, I think that's awesome. And I love that this actually came out of like real life. We could have to do this.
You never know when you're going to be in an elevator at a conference, and yeah.
Y'all watching, this could happen tomorrow. We're getting you ready for elevator pitches.
You could be holding your matcha, just checking along in New York, and you never know who's going to come up.
Exactly.
Well, Kyra, like this could happen to you tomorrow too. So
I fear it happens
and Dottie
at least once a week.
Yeah, it really does. And Dottie noted too, I think that is always, I always like to mention that it is one of the most debilitating disorders, because folks often in the media, it's often minimized or seen as a cute quirk, which it absolutely is not cute or quirky. It takes away so many aspects of our lives. So yeah, Kyra, I would love to hear from you, your elevator pitch.
Definitely. Okay. So I feel like because I'm so open about my OCD advocacy, I feel like a lot of my classmates or other students like at Rice campus always come up to me and ask, or I will mention something like my accommodation, and they'll kind of have a rude comment to make. They're like, so you get guaranteed housing just because you like things in a row? And I go, well, actually, and I say OCD is an extremely debilitating disorder. For one, it almost killed me, and I did not think that I was going to be here today because it was so debilitating. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't leave the house. My nighttime routine was like 2 hours long, and I just dreaded every day. So it's not something to joke about. It's not an adjective. It's not something, it's not just like a cute quirk, but it's very important for other people to see the reality that is living with OCD, so that more people can understand it. And that you can come out the other side, because I knew that was a little like hard for me to understand. Like I couldn't even imagine it. But I said I did a lot of hard work to be here, and now I'm an OCD advocate, and I'm very passionate about like giving back and hopefully being like a resource that I would have liked to have had. And then I give them my Instagram, and I'm like, watch my fun, cringy IOCD advocacy like reels.
I love that. And I love, again, that you're taking opportunities. I mean, both of you, Jessie in the elevator at the conference, and then Kyra, even with things like accommodations where other kind of classmates might not understand, to really raise awareness and recognize it's debilitating. It almost took my life, which is the case for so many. And also there's resources, there's help, there's hope. Wiley says those mean comments sometimes hurt, but yeah, I love that folks are so much more educated about it than they were. And I always say, even for me, it was like 2013, 2014, which isn't that long ago.
You're aging yourself, Katie.
I am. Oh gosh, I'm doing the thing.
You're doing the thing.
I'm doing the old person thing where I'm like, it's not that long
Back
ago.
in my day.
In my day. Oh, sorry. But yeah, it really, I guess it wasn't that long ago that I was like told in ministry, you can't seek treatment. You can't get help because you won't pass your psych evaluations. You won't, all of the things. I love, let's see, Matt says, I was in Katie's group for this topic too, and I'll add a new analogy. We did a whole, like, there are some cool elevator pitches with this that we did this week. And he said, I would describe it metaphorically as the Bogart from Harry Potter when it shifts into your worst nightmare with the fear of a doubt, but we have the power of choice with how to respond, where one day we can make fun of it too, taking the power away from OCD, just like in the movie. I love that, Matt. That's awesome. Fantastic. I would love to hear you like actually do that in an elevator with somebody. And I want to see it. I want to hear it. We're gonna, with this kind of basic theme, keep going. And I'm gonna go over to Jessie for this one, of just based on your experience and also now your work as a clinician, if we had to explain to this crew what are obsessions. And I know it always sounds so basic, but I think it's really important to always go back to what even is this thing.
Yeah, no, it's such a good point. And I feel like I was recently in a situation where a friend of mine was like, I think I have OCD. And I was like, am I like giving it to people around me? Like, then I had OCD about this girl having OCD because I was like, why do all these people have OCD? But she was saying, like, I don't even really know what OCD is. And I think that's a really important part of it, is like actually understanding like what are obsessions. So I'm really glad you asked that and that we're going over it. I think to me, something I didn't understand about obsessions that like I knew, but like didn't really quite comprehend as like a young kid, was that they're unwanted, but so repetitive. Like that's what really got me. And honestly, what still trips me up to this day is that even though they don't, like, they go against my values, there's something that like freak me out, they're still repetitive. And that's what usually gets me. I don't know about you, Kyra and Katie, but like I'll do really good at like using a skill and resisting a compulsion because I have this obsession that's repetitive. I'll do like a great job of, for my example earlier, like not checking under the bed, let's say, but then like by time 30, I'm like kind of exhausted. And so I'm like, I'll just check under the bed. And so I think that's something that people without OCD might not quite realize, is like how repetitive it is and how like unrelenting the obsessions can be.
I totally agree. And I think that repetitive and unrelenting, it just kind of keeps going piece is so important. I'll go to Kyra. Is there anything that you would add of kind of how you explain it to folks, or even what this looks like for you?
I normally give them like an example of what it looked like for me, and even looks like on some bad days that I have. I just kind of like envision it as that intrusive thought kind of like sitting at the back of my head. Like I can go about and do other things now because thankfully I've learned a lot of like coping skills, and ERP has helped me a lot, but still like somewhere in the back of my head it's kind of like nagging while I go and do other things. And I would also really like to highlight that intrusive thoughts are ego dystonic. So they are not like anything about you as a person. They don't reflect anything except for your fears. So having taboo thoughts doesn't make you a bad person. And I think that that's important to kind of especially tell people who aren't as versed with OCD, because they might not think about that in relation to OCD because of like the stereotype.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up too. And the ego dystonic piece is so important. And for people to hear, OCD, it latches onto the things that are the most important to you and it twists them. So it literally goes against everything that you care about. And I joke on these streams a lot about like we can see it in this kind of weird way of when somebody gets an obsession around something, it might mean they really care about it. Like I always say, when I first knew that Ethan loved me was,
I love this example.
Yeah, I always tell this, but I think it's really, so Ethan, his obsessions forever have been always about himself and about health, because he cared deeply about his health and like him being safe and all kinds of stuff. And when we were first dating and he told me, he's like, oh my gosh, I had an intrusive thought about murdering you. I was like, oh my gosh, you do love me. Oh, that's so right. So it does, though. It's in opposition to those things that, that we care about, and it latches onto the stuff that's really important to us. So thank you all. Well, and I'd love to, so after we get this obsession for folks with OCD, we tend to experience discomfort. And you can almost imagine this for folks watching like a little cycle. There's this obsession, this what if I'm bad? What if I'm this? What if I'm that? What if I'm contaminated? What if I'm, all the things. But then this discomfort shows up. And I think sometimes we just say anxiety, but I always like to note that discomfort can come in so many freaking different forms. So I wonder, Jessie, what has discomfort looked like for you throughout your journey? How does that show up alongside these obsessions?
Oh my God, I feel like so many different ways of discomfort. And also I think you make such a good point, because I feel like I do tend to have like anxiety reaction, but I do think sometimes the discomfort kind of comes later. Like I don't even realize it until afterwards. And I'm like, that's why I was so uncomfortable. And that can totally happen to me. And I think that's why compulsions are so like, what's the word? Like are so like, oh, for someone with OCD, because it's like, oh, well, I could get like this little bit of relief from this distress I'm feeling. Like, wouldn't anyone do that? Like, if you're feeling so much distress, like I would imagine anyone would want to get that relief. And so that's why it seems so like, and often it's so close by. Like there is something that you can literally do to feel better. Like for me, it was checking that light and seeing no one was there. And I was like, oh, thank God. And you get that little bit of relief, because then the distress does lessen. But then, of course, as we know, it comes back and it cycles all over again. But yeah, it can look very different. And also, I think it can look like anxiety. It could also look a lot like disgust. It could be a lot of different things.
Yeah, I love that you talked about that, because it is, that's for so many folks, that's why we do the compulsion. It's like, yeah, we get this intrusive thought, and then there's so much discomfort around it that it's like, well, I can't sit with this discomfort. Ooh, if I do this compulsion, maybe I can get rid of just a little bit of that. And for folks listening, yeah, it might work initially, but then it comes back around. We get more stuck. The discomfort increases. It doesn't actually help us, but it's super tempting. So I wonder, Kyra, for you, how does discomfort show up for you? Do you have kind of primary forms that it takes?
Let me see. My main thing, I've had various different subtypes of OCD because it just loves to morph and change on me.
Don't brag, Kyra.
I'm collecting them all. I have like a booklet. So I have like a vest with all my like OCD badges on it. Trying to fill it all.
That would be a wild Halloween costume.
That actually would be crazy.
That's such a good idea. Can we do that?
Katie's actually considering it now.
No,
she's
I'm like
they're all going to be different shades of pink, like all the different.
Yes.
I got you.
Well, OCD Awareness Week is in October, so.
Yeah. Let's do it.
What else? Oh yeah, so my main thing was contamination, really. So I used to feel it as if like I could feel like the contamination like on my hands, and like I know that sounds like so stupid, but I could like feel it, and I knew it was irrational. That's another thing about intrusive thoughts. Most of the time we know they're irrational. Like I will realize that I walked past like a load of my clean laundry and I didn't touch it. But what if I did? So I got to go back and I got to walk past it again. But yeah, a lot of my thing is just like physical discomfort, and now it's kind of like mental discomfort. I just feel not at my best when I'm having an OCD flare up. Like right now it's actually a little bit more difficult, I think, starting the new year, a new internship, things like that. But yeah, I just feel like there's always something like I said, at the back of my head, like nagging, so I can't fully devote myself into anything else.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. And I'm so glad that you explained that to us with kind of the contamination side too. And even the questioning ourselves, well, we know that it might be irrational. And that's such a key perspective kind of with OCD too, that we often know it's irrational, but it just feels too scary to still let it go. It's like, but the what if? And I'll say for me with discomfort, just like everyone said, comes in so many forms, but for me, it's often guilt or shame, which shows up a lot for folks navigating moral themes or religious themes with scrupulosity or harm and taboo kind of stuff too. So for me, it's always the guilt and shame that gets me. But I feel guilty, but I need to make sure that I fix it. And for the question in the chat about it having subtypes, yeah, so OCD is super fascinating. It can show up in all different forms, but I always like to remind folks that it's still the same old OCD. OCD, I always describe as really nasty ice cream that happens to come in a lot of different gross artificial flavors. It's all still the same OCD, but it shows up differently just based on what's important to us. So for some, it might come in the form of over responsibility or perfectionism or harm or religious OCD or contamination. And for some, it might swirl together with those gross flavors or throw in some gross toppings, but it's all still kind of that same nasty ice cream. Where we have the obsession and then that discomfort. And then we try to alleviate it, like Jessie said, with the compulsion. So compulsion, Kyra, I'll go over to you first. I'd love to hear. So like, what's a compulsion? How do we explain that to somebody? What are some examples? What does that look like?
Ooh, okay. So for me, I would give, when I'm explaining it to someone, I'd give a few different examples from my different subtypes to show how they can kind of be different. One for my contamination OCD is obviously cleaning. Like I had to clean my bathroom every single night and wipe down the dressers, hence the mold. And then also avoidance. I just would like stay away from anything that I thought was contaminated. Whereas in gymnastics, I used to have like all of my hair bands in a specific order, or else I was convinced that I was going to crash and hurt myself. Or what else? With the like magical contamination, the laundry example, like I'll be 6 feet away from it and I'll be like, did I touch that? And my mom is looking at me like, Kyra, like, no, you did not. And I was just like, but I feel like I did. So yeah, so that's kind of like cliff notes for that. And then I also make sure to say compulsions feel better short term, but they're actually, every time you do it, you're reinforcing the OCD and just making it worse. So every single time you resist a compulsion, even if it's not, you don't have the strength to do it every time, it's still progress and you're still doing, you're not doing anything wrong.
No, you're like literally making OCD smaller as much as it feels like you're doing something irresponsible. I love that. I love all of that. Thank you for sharing that. And just, it's hard, y'all. We get it. Like not engaging in the compulsion is so hard. So Jessie, I wonder for you, what does this look like? How do you describe it to folks and how does it show up?
Yeah, I was gonna say Kyra covered it brilliantly. So
Kyra like crushed it.
I know she crushed it. So I would just give an example from my own experience of one of the things that was a big part that I didn't know was OCD because it was really rewarded was I have a lot of perfectionism with school. So like I would at like the height of my career of OCD in college, I would be like, I did everything on flashcards. So like if we had to like read a book, it'd be like, Katie wears a pink shirt, and I'd have like on my flashcard, Katie wears a blank shirt, and then it'd be pink, and I'd like basically memorize everything. So I did really well on my tests because I memorized everything. And it was rewarded because it was like, look at Jessie, she's such a good student. Like, go Jessie. But I like, there's obviously the downside to that of like, I missed a lot of time with friends, and it kind of wrecked a lot of my like high school experience and all of that because all I cared about was doing well. And if I got an A-, I would cry like a lot. And like, it's embarrassing to say, but like that was my life. Like it had to be perfect. And so for me, a lot of the ERP of like, and I guess we didn't really explain that, but like the exposure of like trying to rid myself of doing these compulsions was when I memorized the stuff on the flashcards, I would like throw out the flashcards because I would go over these flashcards like 5-6 times and I had like stacks. And I remember my best friend's mom was like, you got to be more like Jessie. Like, this is great. And I was like, she loves me. I was like, yeah. Like, little did I know this was like so compulsive. But that was a big thing for me was realizing like, oh, this is helping me like a little bit in school, but also like it's hurting me like a lot more in my life. And so
it's like taking life in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember and then I went to grad school to become a therapist, and I remember in grad school they're like, yeah, and like did you like undergrad? And I was like, yeah, I loved undergrad. And they're like, yeah, you like studying? And I was like, no. Like they're like, oh, you liked like learning? And I was like, I never learned. Like I didn't really learn anything. I just memorized and like beat myself up. Like people enjoy school. I never thought of school as something enjoyable other than when I was like a little kid, but like school was always like very scary for me. And I never even considered like, oh, you could enjoy learning, because to me it was totally like corrupted by OCD.
Yeah, it's so interesting how even when folks ask that question, it doesn't even cross their mind that your experience is so different, kind of moving through school.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I mean, you started to mention ERP a little bit, and for folks listening, kind of the same thing. I know we just talked about what is OCD, but I'd love to hear from you, Jessie, like what, especially as a clinician now, what does treatment for OCD look like? What is ERP? Like, how do we define it? But also, what has that been like for you, especially for somebody who for such a long time didn't know what am I? Yeah. What did it feel like to lean into that for the first time?
Yeah, and this like riles me up almost more than OCD is like people not knowing once they find out it's OCD, then knowing that the gold standard is ERP and knowing like to do ERP as opposed to treatments that may not be tested as much. So ERP stands for exposure and response prevention. So you're essentially exposing yourself gradually to the feared object while not engaging in these compulsive behaviors. And I don't know about you guys, but like when I heard this from my therapist that I was like so eager to go to, I was like, oh no. And she was like, yeah, and like we could get to the point where you're like not checking the alarm anymore. You're not checking like the garage door, whatever. And I was like, whoa, like let's not go crazy here. I have a family to protect. But I think it's interesting because as someone commented, so basically like sucking it up. And I think that is a really common misconception of like, oh, you just gotta like suck it up and you don't engage in the compulsion. And I totally see how people would think that. But when you're doing ERP, your therapist is also giving you the skills to be able to handle that distress and discomfort that we were talking about earlier of like, oh my God, this is really scary and this is a big fear of mine. It's not like, oh yeah, like good luck, like see ya. It's more like, here's what you can do. That's a safe, healthy way of like being as you tolerate this distress.
Yeah, I love that because I think it is such a common thing that we just assume, okay, it's just suck it up, like ride it out. And basically a method for sucking it up.
Basically.
I wouldn't say that, but I mean, so I think how I imagine, and Jessie, you can answer this too, like clinically, but I imagine for me, I think I tried to suck it up for a long time. And that was actually just me white knuckling. It wasn't.
I was just going to throw out that phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it wasn't for me. It wasn't using any skills or tools. It was like, oh, I'm going to get through this. And I'm going to try to kind of mentally make sure I'm still kind of safe and like all of the things. And I actually think it's almost the opposite of sucking it up. It's actually kind of leaning into it and living your life alongside the obsession. It's like moving toward everything that you care about, even when OCD is really loud. Yeah, I don't know if that's kind of what you're thinking with the white knuckling.
Exactly. And Kyra, I'm curious your thoughts on this, but I know one of my favorite videos, there's a therapist named Reed Wilson who's brilliant. And he has this video. Katie, I don't know if you've seen it. It's his acceptance speech for an award, and it's like 8 self-help strategies for OCD. It's brilliant. If anyone hasn't seen it,
I love Reed, so I'll have to go back.
I love him. It's short. It's brilliant. I send it to all of my clients. All the clients I've had have seen this video. And he basically says, like, don't do exposure. Do exposure with attitude. And I love that. I love that so much because you get to a point where you get so fed up. And I think this is the point I was at where I'm like, and Kyra, where you're like, either I die or I like give into this. Like I am going to like give it's the wrong phrase, but like I'm gonna like give into like the therapy, where you're like, no, like I want the alarm to go off. Like, come on, like give it to me. Like, let's have the alarm go off. And I can say this because I'm not in that house right now. If I were in that house, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm jinxing myself. So because we're exposing ourselves tonight, as Kyra was saying. But I think I think a lot of us do get to that point where we're like ready to take on exposure with attitude.
I love, and I want to go over to Kyra to hear what she has to say too, but I really want to say what you just said with Reed. The therapist who very much saved my life was Shala Nicely, and love Shala. Actually hadn't seen her.
And she has the shoulders back thing too.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, and I hadn't
Yeah.
seen her in years until this recent conference, which was actually really cool because I didn't know she was there in person, and she came to my first talk, and then I saw her after, and I had been talking about her, but I didn't know because it was a big room that she was in there, and that was a whole emotional thing, and I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway,
So cute.
it was super cool. But anyway, she does shoulders back, and Reed was her mentor. So she kind of pulled that from a lot of the Reed stuff. And she says shoulders back with confidence. And when I used to be in treatment, she would make me actually stand up, and she would say, get in Wonder Woman pose. And she would put my hands on my hips, shoulders back. And she would say, how excited are you to be anxious? And I'd be like, I don't know. And she would make me say, I am so pumped to be anxious right now. Like, I cannot wait to have all of the anxiety and to die and to have all of these. I would just like, and the attitude, it makes such a difference. It really does.
Definitely.
It does.
It's like, okay, Kyra, yeah, we've been talking about this I want to hear from you. ERP, attitude, what sticks out to you?
Definitely echo everything you said. I did ERP for like a little bit when my OCD was like getting worse. But like I said, I did it like to appease my mom, to just go through the motions. I wasn't really doing anything. I was basically just sucking it up. And like in my head, I was like, don't worry, like you can do your next exposure after this. And I was like giving myself so much reassurance that like the exposures really like weren't doing anything. And so that's originally why I was like, ERP, like, no, people are lying. In fact, they are not. It's very, very helpful. And once, I started basically putting all of myself into it and really deciding to take an active role in my like treatment, then that's when I started seeing results, because just going through the motions is not helpful. And I always say, like, you get out of it what you put into it. So once I started putting into it, actually, instead of just brushing it under the rug, then it started helping a lot. And ERP, when I'm explaining it to people, I basically just say, like, it's facing your biggest fears every single day, and like poking a bear and just like standing there. And you're like, well, I might die, but yeah. So it's pretty much, just facing your fears. So that's the analogy I kind of give to people who are just hearing about ERP for the first time.
I love to use the bear analogy. I do that a lot too, of kind of poking it and then just hanging out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, the hanging out there part is so important, because I think so often we're like, oh, exposure therapy, but the ERP piece, the response prevention, is so important. And there's a clinician in this community, Dr. Emily Bailey, who's a good friend of mine, and we do a lot of group work together. And she always says little e, big RP. And I love that. And she's like, the exposure is important. We're gonna do that exposure, but we're gonna like massively do that response prevention. It's like, that's where the change happens. And I think that piece is so important, of really just hanging out with confidence in front of the bear who's roaring. And I don't know what else bears do besides roar, but he's doing something else too.
Yeah. My thing is sit with the uncertainty. I cannot tell you how many times I heard that, or like sit with the discomfort. So that's been like drilled into me, and that's the whole part.
I love that. Well, I want to ask, we've talked about what OCD actually is. And unfortunately, there is still sometimes stigma around OCD, or there are myths that persist that have come up a little bit too. So I'd love to stay with you, Kyra, and hear, how does this show up? You talked about this a little bit already in school, but I wonder where you still hear OCD used incorrectly and how you think we can
My goodness.
How is that? Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much everywhere. I had an internship during the summer, and sometimes I would need to like Uber back home. I taught so many Uber drivers about OCD because what do you do outside of school? And I'm like, mock trial and OCD awareness. That's me. And so I've educated so many Uber drivers. I've done so many of like my friends, obviously. There's been like varying levels of acceptance. Most people are totally nice. They're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, thank you for telling me. I really appreciate like knowing that, because all I'd seen was it in the media. And then there are some people who aren't as receptive to it. My grandfather, for one, not very receptive. That was very like damaging to our relationship, I'd say, because he kept minimizing my OCD experience. And he would say he has OCD too. He doesn't like pictures to be crooked. And no matter how many advocate talks, live streams I sent him, speeches I slewed his way, he, I think, just refuses to understand. So that's a little bit rough, but it's, you know what, like you can't force people to understand. You can only do your best to help the people who actually want to understand. And like the guy who didn't know about why I would be able to get guaranteed housing because I like things neat. I went into the 20-minute advocate spiel. And then at the end, he's just like, I still don't understand why like you get to live on campus because you're like clean. And I was like, okay, I fear there's no helping this one. So knowing when to like not take it personally is also really interesting. But yeah, most people are very willing to learn and willing to like know about like other people's like struggles with OCD, and because it's something that they never really thought about.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And also I'm really sorry too about, it's so hard when you have family, I think, who don't, and that can feel so painful, where you want to feel supported and in that way. And I've definitely had that experience too. It can be so hard. But I love what you said of kind of knowing where to continue to advocate and also knowing where to not take it personally. And I think that's been a learning for me throughout the years, where it used to be, no, everybody has to understand. And I'm like, well, some people might not understand, and I can do my best, and that's can move on to other spaces. I want to hear from Jessie too, but I also want to welcome Cash. Cash, you're only 50 minutes late. It's okay. It's all right. It's fine. Yes, I am wearing pink, of course. But Cash, we're glad you're here along with this crew. It is not a Tuesday night live stream without Cash. Jessie, would love to hear from you. What kind of stereotypes do you still hear, and how do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's interesting because, as you said, like I am now an ERP therapist, and it's kind of interesting because that, like, I go to a lot of like events where like you meet new people, and people are like, oh, what do you do for work? That like always comes up, right? And so I usually do say like I'm a therapist. I specialize in OCD, and people, interestingly enough, so many people, like the most common response I've gotten is, I think I have OCD, which is like, I'm giving it to people. I like my OCD latches onto that one as well. I'm like, oh my God, how are there all these people that I interact with? Like,
well,
I didn't
even have OCD before I met Jessie.
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So yeah, I infected Kyra too, but
everyone stay away from Jessie.
yeah, even just watching this live stream, yeah,
going out.
Yeah. So I find that
worship like drop.
Yeah, no, it increases because everyone now has OCD.
Yes, yeah. So true.
You're welcome, IOCDF. But so I find that people are quarantined now. That's funny. There's no stopping me. I think my one superpower. I think it's interesting that people, as someone had said, like there is a lot more information about it, and I think I might feel naively optimistic about that. Like more people do seem to know, and I think the more I'm in the OCD circles, the more I'm like, everyone knows about OCD. Are you kidding? And then I'm like at an event and people are like, what's that? And I'm like, what? But I find that actually it is really hard for me to, it's easier for me to advocate about OCD when it hasn't come up in that way. But when it does come up in that way, I feel almost so uncomfortable and like frustrated that it's hard for me to like eloquently speak to that. So I find that what Kyra was saying too, of sometimes like, yeah, this is a good time versus like, okay, this might not be a good time. And I kind of have to weigh that out because it can make me just so like riled up because I know the statistics and I know all the stuff about it delaying treatment and diagnoses.
Yeah, I think there's a self-care piece here too, right? Of recognizing where it's, we always want to advocate and inform, and also recognizing where it's a safe situation for you mentally and emotionally and helpful. And I think that's really kind of important to think about. And I've definitely, I've had those too. And I do, Jessie, I share your optimism though. Like I feel like so many more people are understanding, not just, I mean, sometimes it is because I'm surrounded by people in the OCD community, but outside of that, I've had so many interactions over the last couple of weeks where people have asked, what do you do? And I used to say, oh, faith and mental health stuff. And I've started actually going into scrupulosity. And I've had multiple people say, this is really fascinating. I think this person in my family or this person in my mosque or this person at my church. And it's been really interesting that folks have kind of gotten it and have been like, oh, I can see how that's a thing. And that's been really neat. I've really appreciated that. I've told like my chiropractor, my dermatologist, like I'm
Uber drivers? Any Uber drivers?
No, actually, no. I've had some Uber conversations. Yeah, those too.
Here I thought I had a monopoly on the Uber driver education.
The chiropractor was cool. I had like a hip injury and I went back for a second session and she was like, oh, you know how you were telling me about scrupulosity last time? My client after you, I think like said they might have it. Is there a way we can like give them your info? I was like, oh my God, cool. We're like spreading awareness. So anyway, so before we were like at an hour almost already, which is crazy because this goes so fast. I am going to have our wonderful speakers here close out with some words of hope. But first, just to keep y'all around for announcements, I'm going to give you announcements so that you have to hang on for their words of hope as a teaser here. So quickly, announcements. Want everyone to know just how much we appreciate you joining us for OCD 101, Back to Basics. And also want to note that the IOCDF is a donor-supported nonprofit. So if you found this live stream helpful, which we really hope you did, please consider making a donation at iocdf.org/donate. Your support provides resources and education and research for those affected by OCD and related disorders. There, I'm sure, are many other live streams coming up that I should have pulled up beforehand. I know there's going to be one tomorrow at noon, probably another one on Thursday. Should have been a little more prep for that. But I'm also going to go ahead and throw out, we have lots of great things coming up. I'm going to do a shameless plug for the Faith and OCD conference. That is November hold on. It's okay. I'm planning this effectively on the 19th, November 19th. So please also, if you would like to participate in that, make sure to mark your calendars for that. So thankful for all of you for being here. And please, again, tune in back here tomorrow at 12. I think there's another one on Thursday. I'm sorry if there's not, but definitely at 12. Cash, thank you. Cash wasn't even here the whole time and made a donation and found us helpful. Cash. We love
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, Cash. Yeah, if he would have been here longer, he wouldn't have donated.
Yeah.
Cash, we so appreciate you. We love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I want to go back over to Kyra and Jessie to have them close out with us for words of hope as we, I was going to say, as we head out into the night.
We ride at dawn. Like.
I don't know. I'm like, so sorry, Cat. I'm so touched by Cash. I'm over here like getting poetic or something. Kyra, words of hope before we head out into the night.
Let me go rapid fire. You are not your OCD. Always remember to choose yourself over your OCD, as hard as that may be. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, even if you don't think there is. I definitely didn't think that I would be here today at Rice studying what I love to study and planning to go to law school, but still doing OCD research. I never thought any of this would be possible, and it would not have been if I didn't stand up to my OCD. So I hope that everybody else gets to have like their dream life, their imaginary matcha lattes in New York City. Whatever your version of that is, you deserve it, and you deserve to like work towards it. Even if it's not easy, it'll be like super, super rewarding. But yeah, worth it.
Totally worth it. Thank you, Kyra. That's beautiful. Thank you for inspiring folks and letting them know where you've been and where you are and the beautiful, awesome places that you're going at dawn. Jessie, would love to hear from you. Words of hope for this awesome community as we close out.
I would two quick things. The first being that hopefully, like, for me, seeing people like Kyra and Katie are really great examples of like people who have like done the work. Like they've put in the hard work. Like Katie's living her dream. I think it's funny when you're like, I do scrupulosity. Like it sounds like I like replace it with another, like I do harm OCD. Like it's kind of funny. Like
I didn't realize I say it like that. That's really funny.
that got me a few times. But like when I'm really struggling, something that does help me, and I was like more on the bashing Ethan train earlier, but now I'm gonna say something kind about him, which like we could scrub off the internet later, hopefully. But
kick her off the live stream now.
Why can't I get back in? And something that really helps me is thinking of people like Kyra and Katie and Ethan, and when I'm really struggling, like if they were here watching me do this, like what would they say? Like they would be cheering me on to sit in that discomfort as opposed to like doing the compulsion. And like that may sound weird to think about like Ethan standing in my living room, and I promise Katie it's not creepy, but in a creepy way at all. But like I do hope that like people watching can think of us as people who care, because we do care. And you know, it's such an amazing community that is there for people with OCD. The other thing I was going to say is that OCD Awareness Week is next month. And there are going to be so many different events. I think there are probably a lot of like local events to Ethan was aware. That's really funny. These comments are cracking me up. I love it. But there's going to be so many different events, and I think it is really scary to sometimes put yourself out there and like even just like go to a live stream or go to an event in person. And I was that person. If you were here earlier, Cash, you'll watch it on the replay. That we talked about, like I was terrified to go to my first like support group, and it changed my life. And I think it is worth going to one of those events or seeking out one of those events or going to an online event, because it changes lives.
Thank you, Jessie. And thank you for mentioning Awareness Week too, which is October 12th to 18th, that I should have mentioned before the conference. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope people really hear that and know that Jessie really means that. I mean, we're all standing in your living room supporting you in a non-creepy way.
We need to think of another way of saying it. Yeah.
Ethan is under Jessie's bed. She's with her in nightlight and he's staring back at her.
Oh gosh.
But fear unlocked.
Everyone on here is gonna. Yeah, Jessie gave everyone OCD, and now they have a new obsession about Ethan hiding under their bed.
Watch how Ethan is watching this and tonight. It's like,
I'm gonna go downstairs and eat dinner with him, and he's gonna be like, "What is going on?" But y'all, I really do hope you know, as much as we joke, like in all seriousness, we've been there. We are with you. We're cheering you on. We know that you can do this, and even in those tough moments like we talked about tonight, you can poke the bear, and you can continue to do the response prevention. You can make OCD smaller, and we're cheering you on for all of it, through all of it. So sending love to everybody tonight. We look forward to seeing you next time, and we hope you have a beautiful Tuesday. I don't know, I'm looking for something magical to say to end, but I'm just going to not tie it in a bow and just say goodbye. So, bye.